Hey Cancer, I hope you're doing well. This reading is for Cancer Sun, Moon, Rising, Venus, and North Node. As always, take what resonates and leave the rest. Thank you so much for being here, for your likes, your comments, and for all the love you send to this channel. I truly appreciate every one of you. Okay, there's something very emotional showing up around your energy. It feels like someone has been trying to ignore what they feel for a long time, but honestly, I don't think they can run from it anymore. There's a strange feeling coming through almost immediately. You know when someone tries so hard to move on from a connection that they end up thinking about it even more? That's what this feels like. I keep picking up on someone who has spent a lot of time trying to convince themselves that they're okay, trying to stay busy, trying to focus on work, responsibilities, other people, other obligations. But every time things become quiet, every time they're alone with their thoughts, your energy somehow finds its way back to them. Wow. The moment I sat with this energy, the Six of Cups appeared, and honestly, it wasn't showing up in a dramatic way. It felt gentle, almost like memories drifting through someone's mind when they least expect it. A song, a scent, a place they haven't visited in a long time. A random moment during the day when your face suddenly crosses their mind. There's a sense that this person keeps returning to certain memories involving you. Not because they're trying to hold on, but because those memories keep finding them. For many of you, I feel like they thought time would make things easier. They thought distance would help. They thought if they focused on something else, eventually these feelings would fade into the background. But that doesn't seem to be what's happening. If anything, the opposite seems true. The harder they try to push this connection away, the louder it becomes inside of them. And now I'm seeing the moon. Okay, this energy feels deep, very deep. Because I don't think this person fully understands why they feel so drawn back towards you. Part of them has tried to explain it logically. Part of them has tried to create reasons. But every explanation seems incomplete. It's almost like their heart knows something their mind is still trying to catch up with. I feel like they're experiencing moments where their intuition becomes impossible to ignore. You know, little nudges, unexpected dreams, strong emotional waves, moments where they suddenly feel your presence even when you're nowhere around. For some of you, they may even find themselves thinking about you at the exact moments they're trying not to. And every time it happens, they're left asking themselves the same question: why? Why am I still thinking about this person? Why does this connection still affect me? Why does it feel like something unfinished remains between us? Honestly, I don't think they have all the answers yet. That's why the moon feels so important here, because this person seems to be standing in front of emotions they haven't fully explored. Emotions they've hidden even from themselves. And the more they try to avoid them, the more visible they become. There's another energy appearing beside this, the Hermit. And wow, this feels like someone spending a lot of time alone with their thoughts lately. Not necessarily isolated from the world, but emotionally withdrawn, reflective, quiet. Looking back over everything that happened between the two of you. I feel like there are moments when they replay entire conversations in their mind. Things you said, things they never responded to, things they wish they had handled differently. And every time they revisit those memories, they discover something they didn't notice before. A deeper feeling, a hidden truth, a realization they weren't ready to face back then. You may not even realize how often this person thinks about you, because on the surface they may appear completely fine. They may appear calm, collected, focused, but underneath that exterior, there seems to be a lot happening, a lot more than they're willing to admit. Okay, now I'm noticing the Page of Cups, and this energy feels different, softer, more vulnerable. Almost innocent. It's making me feel like beneath all the confusion, beneath all the hesitation, there is still a very sincere emotion here. Something genuine. Something that hasn't disappeared. I keep feeling this image of someone wanting to reach out but stopping themselves. Typing something and deleting it. Thinking about a conversation and then talking themselves out of it. Wanting to know how you're doing. Wondering if you've moved on. Wondering if you still think about them the way they think about you. Because there is definitely curiosity here. But it feels deeper than curiosity. It feels emotional, and honestly, I think that's what scares them. Because the more they try to understand these feelings, the more they realize they never truly left. They may have walked away physically. They may have created distance. They may have convinced themselves that life needed to go in another direction. But emotionally, there's still something pulling at them. Something quiet, something persistent, something they haven't been able to silence. And the feeling I'm getting right now is that this pull is becoming stronger, not weaker. Almost as if their heart is preparing to show them something they've been avoiding for a very long time, The energy shifts the moment I look deeper into the spread. It's heavier here, not dark, just heavy. Like someone carrying a weight they've been pretending doesn't exist. Wow, the Nine of Swords is sitting right in front of me. And what I'm picking up isn't just sadness. It's the kind of exhaustion that comes from replaying the same thoughts over and over again. The kind that follows someone into quiet rooms. The kind that appears when the day finally slows down and there's nothing left to distract them. I feel like this person has been having conversations with themselves for a while, questioning their choices, questioning their reactions, questioning why they handled certain moments the way they did. You know, there are some people who immediately recognize when they've made a mistake. This doesn't feel like that. This feels like someone who needed time. Someone who spent a long period convincing themselves they were doing the right thing. Convincing themselves that distance was necessary. That silence was necessary. That pulling away was somehow protecting them. Yet the further they moved from what they felt, the louder those feelings became. And that's creating a lot of inner conflict, because I don't think they're just afraid of losing you. It feels like they're afraid of what happens if they fully acknowledge how much you matter. There's a difference. One fear is about another person. The other fear is about yourself, about what you have to change, about what you have to admit, about what parts of your life can no longer stay the same. Okay, the moon appears again, and every time I see it in this spread, it feels like layers being peeled back, not all at once, slowly, carefully, almost reluctantly. This person seems to be discovering things about themselves they weren't expecting to find. For many of you, they may have always seen themselves as the strong one, the logical one, the independent one, the one who could walk away from difficult emotions and keep moving. Yet something about this connection refuses to fit inside that version of themselves. Because no matter how hard they try to place these feelings into a neat little box, they keep spilling out. I keep seeing someone lying awake at night, not necessarily crying, not necessarily overwhelmed, just thinking. Thinking about how different things could have been. Thinking about conversations they wish had gone differently. Thinking about opportunities they may have let pass by. There's a quiet regret here. A private regret, the kind they don't share with anyone. And as I sit with that energy, the Eight of Swords comes into view. This card feels incredibly personal in this reading, because the restriction I'm sensing doesn't feel external. It feels self-created. Almost like this person built a maze around their own heart. A maze made from fears, assumptions, past experiences, old disappointments, old wounds. Every wall was built for protection. Every rule was created to keep them safe. Yet, somewhere along the way, those same walls became a prison. And I think they're beginning to realize that. They're starting to see how often fear has been making decisions for them. Fear of rejection, fear of vulnerability, fear of looking foolish, fear of being the one who cares more, fear of choosing something that could change their entire life. Because that's another thing I keep feeling. This connection doesn't seem small to them. It doesn't feel casual. It doesn't feel temporary. It feels significant enough that ignoring it is becoming harder than facing it. Which is why they're standing in front of such a difficult crossroads. Part of them wants to stay where everything feels familiar, even if familiar isn't making them happy, even if familiar leaves them feeling empty. At least familiar feels predictable, you know? At least they know how that story ends. The unknown is what scares them. The possibility of opening their heart. The possibility of reaching out. The possibility of hearing an answer they aren't prepared for. Yet there's another energy entering the reading, a very different energy, a louder one, judgment. And the moment this card appears, I feel movement. Not physical movement yet, internal movement. The kind that starts deep within someone before their actions ever change. It's almost like they're waking up. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just gradually becoming unable to ignore what they've been shown. I feel like certain truths are becoming impossible for them to deny. Truths about their feelings, truths about their behavior, truths about the role they played in creating distance between the two of you. Because one thing keeps coming through very strongly. This person is beginning to understand that not everything happened because of circumstances. Not everything happened because of bad timing. Some of it happened because they were scared. Scared of being hurt. Scared of being seen. Scared of what this connection was asking them to become. And that realization isn't easy. In fact, it feels uncomfortable, humbling, a little painful, yet strangely freeing at the same time. Because once someone sees the truth, they can't completely unsee it. And I keep feeling this shift happening underneath the surface. Like pieces are moving into place. Like questions they've been avoiding are finally demanding answers. Like a door they've kept closed for a very long time is beginning to open just enough for a little light to get through. And the closer they get to that door, the harder it becomes to pretend they don't already know what's waiting on the other side. A warmth starts moving through the reading here. Not a loud energy, not something rushed. More like the first light appearing through a window before sunrise. You know that feeling when someone spends so much time fighting themselves that eventually they become tired of the fight? That's what this reminds me of. The resistance feels weaker. The walls don't seem as solid as they once were. And sitting right in the center of this shift, I see the lovers. Wow. The atmosphere changes immediately. Because this doesn't feel like someone trying to figure out whether they have feelings. That part seems clear. What feels significant is that they're beginning to question every reason they gave themselves for staying away. I keep getting the image of someone standing in front of two paths. One path is familiar, predictable, comfortable. The other feels uncertain. Yet, there's something about it that keeps calling their name. For a long time, they may have listened more closely to the voices around them than the voice inside themselves. Family expectations, social expectations, the opinions of people who don't have to live with the consequences of their choices. There's a sense that this person became very good at doing what was expected, very good at being practical, very good at convincing themselves that certain sacrifices were necessary. Yet somewhere along the way, they started losing sight of what they actually wanted. And that's where things become emotional. Because I feel like this person has reached a point where pleasing everyone else isn't bringing them peace anymore. They're beginning to understand that you can make all the right choices and still feel something important is missing. Okay. The King of Cups appears, and I have to say, this energy feels incredibly different from what we were seeing before. Because this isn't panic. This isn't confusion. This isn't someone running from their emotions. This feels like someone sitting with them, learning from them, allowing themselves to feel things they spent a long time suppressing. I keep picking up on moments where they're observing you from a distance, watching your growth, watching how you've handled everything. Watching how you've continued moving forward, even when things weren't easy. There's admiration here, a lot of admiration, more than they probably realize themselves. Because the version of you they see today feels stronger than the version they once knew. And strangely enough, that doesn't push them away. It draws them closer. The more they observe you, the more they begin imagining what life might feel like if they stopped resisting this connection. Not in some fantasy world, not in some perfect story, just in real life. Simple moments, conversations, shared experiences, ordinary days that somehow feel meaningful because you're there. That's what surprises me. The future they're imagining doesn't feel dramatic. It feels peaceful. And for someone who has spent so much time living inside uncertainty, peace can be incredibly attractive. Temperance is showing up right beside this. And there's something beautiful about that, because what I'm sensing isn't two people becoming identical. It's two different worlds beginning to make sense together. For many of you, there may be noticeable differences between you and this person. Different backgrounds, different lifestyles, different ways of approaching life. Things that once felt complicated, things that once gave them reasons to hesitate. Yet those same differences seem to be changing shape in their mind. I almost feel them looking at those differences and seeing them through an entirely new lens. Instead of asking, how would this work? They're beginning to ask, what if this is exactly why it works? Wow, that's a big shift. Because curiosity is replacing fear. Understanding is replacing assumptions. And when that happens, possibilities start opening up. I feel like they're realizing that some of the qualities they admire most about you are the very things that once intimidated them. Your emotional depth, your independence, your ability to trust your intuition, your willingness to follow your heart. All of those things may have challenged them at one point. Yet those same qualities are becoming impossible for them to ignore. There's almost a magnetic quality to it. Like they're seeing parts of themselves reflected back through you. Parts they haven't fully embraced yet, and then I see strength. Okay, this card feels powerful. Not because someone is charging forward, not because someone is forcing an outcome. It feels powerful because of what they're finally willing to face. The fears haven't completely disappeared. The doubts haven't magically vanished. Life hasn't suddenly become simple. What has changed is their relationship with those fears. Because courage isn't showing up as the absence of fear. It's showing up as the willingness to keep moving, even while fear is present. I keep feeling this internal conversation happening. A part of them still wants safety, still wants certainty, still wants guarantees that no one can realistically provide. Yet another part is becoming louder, a part that keeps asking, what if I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering? What if avoiding this isn't protecting me anymore? What if the biggest risk isn't reaching out, but never finding out what could have happened? And the more those questions surface, the harder it becomes for them to return to the version of themselves that existed before. Something is forming here, not fully visible yet, not fully spoken, almost like a decision taking shape beneath the surface of the water, quietly, gradually, one heartbeat at a time. And the feeling I keep getting is that they're much closer to that decision than anyone around them realizes. A restless energy begins moving through the spread, not chaotic, not impulsive, more like someone standing in front of a closed door with their hand already reaching toward the handle. You know, there comes a moment when silence starts feeling heavier than words, when holding everything inside becomes more exhausting than speaking the truth. That's where this person seems to be. The first card that catches my attention is the Page of Swords. And wow, this feels like somebody watching, observing, paying attention to details they never used to notice. I keep getting the feeling that your name crosses their mind far more often than they admit. For some of you, this person may be checking your social media, reading comments, looking at photos, wondering who you're spending time with, trying to understand where you are emotionally without directly asking. There's something almost nervous about it, like they're gathering information before making a move. Because the closer they get to speaking their truth, the more aware they become of what they stand to lose. I feel them wondering whether you've changed, whether you've moved on, whether your heart still holds a place for them, and every answer they imagine seems to create another question. Okay, something about this energy feels different from before. Earlier, there was a lot of reflection, a lot of hesitation, a lot of internal processing. This feels more active, like thoughts are beginning to turn into intentions. Because they're not only thinking about you anymore, they're thinking about talking to you. There's a huge difference between those two things. One stays inside the heart. The other, courage. The other requires vulnerability. The other requires accepting that once certain words are spoken, they can't be taken back. And that's exactly why this feels so significant. The Eight of Wands appears here. The atmosphere speeds up immediately, almost like the universe is removing some of the delays that have been surrounding this connection. I keep seeing messages, conversations, words that have been sitting unspoken for far too long. For many of you, this may not arrive in the way you expect. It doesn't feel rehearsed. It doesn't feel perfectly planned. It feels emotional, human, a little messy, a little nervous, like someone who has replayed a conversation in their head 100 times, only to realize that none of those versions matter once the real moment arrives. Because the truth is, I don't think this person wants to keep pretending anymore. The effort of maintaining distance seems to be wearing them down, especially when their feelings continue growing beneath the surface. And the more I sit with this energy, the more I feel that they want you to understand something, not defend themselves, not justify every mistake. Just explain. There's a difference. Because I keep hearing this unspoken desire to say, I wasn't ready. I didn't know how to handle this. I was afraid. Those words feel simple, yet they carry so much weight, particularly when they've been buried for so long. Wow. The Ace of Cups is showing itself now, and the emotional energy becomes impossible to ignore. This doesn't feel like a performance. It doesn't feel calculated. There's something very genuine here, almost innocent, like emotions that have been locked away finally finding an opening. I keep seeing someone sitting alone, imagining what they would say if they had one uninterrupted conversation with you. Not a rushed exchange, not a casual text, a real conversation, the kind where masks come off, the kind where people stop pretending they're unaffected, the kind where someone finally says what they've been carrying for months, maybe longer, because there seems to be a realization happening. A realization that vulnerability isn't weakness, that expressing feelings doesn't automatically lead to rejection, that opening your heart may be frightening, but closing it forever can be even more painful, and that realization feels transformative, not dramatic, just deeply personal, almost sacred, like they're beginning to trust their emotions instead of constantly questioning them. Six of Pentacles appears beside this, and the energy softens. I immediately feel balance, not perfection. Balance, the desire to meet someone halfway, the desire to stop taking and start giving, to stop expecting understanding without offering honesty in return. For some of you, I feel like this person has become very aware of the effort you've invested in this connection, the patience, the compassion, the understanding, things they may not have fully appreciated at the time. There's a quiet gratitude showing up here, and with that gratitude comes responsibility. Because once someone recognizes what they've been given, they often begin questioning what they've given back. I feel them looking at the past through a different lens, not to punish themselves, not to stay trapped in regret, simply to understand, to see where fear interrupted communication, to see where pride created distance, to see where opportunities were left untouched. And the more clearly they see those moments, the stronger the desire becomes to make things right. Not because they're chasing an ideal outcome, not because they're trying to erase the past, because they don't want the story to end with things left unsaid. That's the strongest feeling coming through. There are words pressing against the inside of their heart, feelings looking for a voice, questions looking for answers. The silence that once felt safe is beginning to feel temporary. And every time they imagine your face, every time they picture hearing your voice, every time they wonder what might happen if they finally tell you everything, that door they've been standing beside starts opening a little wider. A sense of certainty begins appearing in the spread. Not certainty about every outcome, not certainty about every detail, more like someone finally becoming certain about what they want. And that's a very different thing, because for the longest time, this person seems to have been measuring possibilities, weighing consequences, trying to predict every scenario before making a move. Yet the energy in front of me no longer feels trapped inside endless analysis. It feels grounded, focused, intentional. The Four of Wands immediately catches my eye, and wow, the feeling attached to this card is surprisingly calm. I expected something dramatic, considering everything we've moved through in this story. Yet what I'm sensing feels peaceful. Almost like this person has spent so much time wrestling with their emotions that the decision itself brings relief. I keep seeing images of shared spaces, not fantasies, not impossible dreams, real life. A kitchen with sunlight coming through the window, conversations after a long day, making plans together, creating traditions together, finding comfort in someone's presence. The future they're imagining seems tangible, reachable. For many of you, I feel like they're no longer asking themselves whether they care. They're asking themselves what kind of life they want to build. And that's a major shift, because once someone starts thinking in terms of building instead of escaping, everything changes. The energy becomes less about fear and more about commitment, less about protecting themselves and more about creating something meaningful. Okay, there's another layer unfolding here. The Hierophant appears, and the moment it does, I feel maturity entering the picture, responsibility, accountability, the willingness to stand behind a choice instead of hiding from it. I keep getting the feeling that this person wants to approach you differently than they have before. Not as the version of themselves that avoided difficult conversations. Not as the version that disappeared whenever emotions became too intense. Not as the version that let uncertainty make decisions for them. There's a strong desire to show up as someone more stable, more dependable, more aligned with the person they believe they can become. You know, growth can be a strange thing. Sometimes people don't realize how much they've changed until they find themselves standing in front of a situation that once terrified them. And suddenly, they're reacting differently, speaking differently, choosing differently. That's what this feels like. This person seems to be looking at circumstances that once made them retreat and realizing they don't want to retreat anymore. They want to remain present, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's vulnerable, even if it requires difficult conversations. Because the possibility of losing this connection appears heavier than the discomfort of facing it. Wow. The Empress is showing up here, and the energy softens immediately. There's so much admiration surrounding you, so much appreciation. I don't think they see you through the same lens they once did. The image I keep receiving is someone slowly recognizing the value of something they almost took for granted. Not because they didn't care, because they didn't fully understand what they were looking at. For many of you, I feel like this person sees your strength differently now. Not just your kindness, not just your compassion, your resilience. The way you've continued growing despite disappointments. The way you've protected your heart without closing it completely. The way you've maintained your worth regardless of what happened between the two of you. There's something about that energy that deeply affects them. It inspires them, challenges them, motivates them. Almost like being near, you encourages them to become a better version of themselves. And that's why this feels bigger than attraction, bigger than chemistry. There's genuine respect here. The kind of respect that grows over time. The kind that survives distance. The kind that often becomes the foundation for something lasting. A smile comes across my face because the energy becomes brighter the deeper we move into the spread. The Ten of Cups appears. And what stands out isn't perfection. It's emotional fulfillment. I keep hearing this person asking themselves a very simple question. What actually makes me happy? Not what looks good on paper, not what other people expect, not what keeps everyone comfortable. What genuinely makes me happy? And every time they ask that question, your energy keeps appearing, your voice, your presence, your laughter, the way they feel when they're truly connected to you. Those things seem impossible for them to overlook anymore. For some of you, There may be an unexpected gesture coming, a conversation, an invitation, a confession, a proposal to start over in a new way. It doesn't feel forced. It feels intentional, like someone who has finally stopped running in circles and started walking towards something, towards someone, because there's a realization taking shape here. Time keeps moving. Opportunities don't stay open forever. And while fear once held the loudest voice in the room, something else is becoming louder. Hope, faith, desire. The belief that some risks are worth taking. I keep seeing this person standing at the edge of a new chapter, looking back one final time at the life they've known, the habits they've carried, the excuses they've hidden behind, the doubts they've allowed to control them. And little by little, those things seem to be losing their grip, because their attention is moving elsewhere, toward the future, toward possibility, toward a choice that feels increasingly difficult to ignore, a choice that seems to carry your name in ways they're only beginning to fully understand. Okay, Cancer, that's all I've got for you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I genuinely appreciate your likes, your comments, your support, and all the love you send this way. It truly means more than you know. The energy around this connection still feels like it's moving, still unfolding, still revealing itself one step at a time. So don't be surprised if things begin making a little more sense in the days ahead. Trust yourself. Trust what your heart is picking up. Cancer, you guys mean a lot to me, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care of yourselves, and as always, bye-bye.